Hello and welcome to Finextra. I'm Emily Horler and I'm here with Professor Michael Barrett of Cambridge Judge Business School. And we're at Warwick Business School's Paytech Conference. Thank you very much for joining me.
It's a pleasure to be here.
How important are mobile money and mobile payments in the quest for financial inclusion?
Well, actually, essential. If you think about what financial inclusion is, it's really helping to build the economic development of a country and to allow access. In terms of how can we get access to who? Who are the people that really need it? It's really the poor in many of our developing countries and other countries around the world. We're looking at billions of people that are excluded from the financial markets. And what I mean by that is basic accounts that we all share here in the developed country context just isn't available to those people. So in terms of how do they access it, well, we know that 80–90% of the population of this planet have access to mobile technologies. So it's a marriage. The sense of how to give access to financial inclusion has to be critically enabled by mobile technologies.
Can you give an example that generates long-term financial inclusion benefits?
M-Pesa. M for mobile, Pesa, which is Swahili for money. And it's a fantastic revolutionary story in Kenya, in East Africa. It so happens that the technology platform was developed 100 yards from my house in Cambridge. So it's a great example of Vodafone looking and having the foresight for the opportunities for how they can, through their technology, enable mobile payments and connecting up with a smaller company, Sogentia, to really get the innovation, to get the understanding of what will work as a service in Kenya for financial inclusion. And the pilot was started all the way back in 2005. And it's a fascinating story because at the time, the Gremian Bank was really showing or suggesting to the world that microloans is powerful, and indeed it is. And that presents often in our mindset a logic that must be the service for developing countries. And what happened through the pilot with Sogentia working with Vodafone was recognizing that really what people needed was a simple value proposition about sending money home. Why? Because Kenyans at the time, you had only 10% with bank accounts, but you had something like 70% or more, it's 80% that already had mobile phones. And so it was really interesting to see how identifying that because of the rural-urban migration that you have there over many decades, where people go to the city, make money and send back to their parents or to their families in rural areas, which for us, even if it was 50 miles, would not seem like a problem. But if you've only got 500 banks across the country, and these same people don't have any bank accounts or any access to the banks, this became critical as a way of doing it both conveniently and cheaply. Simply because to understand the lay of the land, there's a lot of security issues, there's a lot of money exchanges and money payments that need to be given to all those intermediaries, the minibus drivers on the ground that change hands 4 times to get 50 miles. So there was a fantastic opportunity to marry what many had in terms of mobile money and the convenience that it offered and the security to a country which today has a very large percentage of their people, over 40% of the GDP is actually going through the M-Pesa system in terms of payments. So we've got a massive change from 10% being involved or having access to bank accounts to now, in terms of access through M-Pesa, well over 40–50% of the population.
Is the mobile payments play for financial inclusion only powerful in the developing world? Or can it support financial inclusion in markets such as the UK?
It's a very interesting question and a difficult one, because the holy grail of how something applies not just to one context but to others, particularly recognizing resource rich, resource poor, in terms of what's the real customer need. What's the value that will be seen by customers in the West is not as clear. There was a dire need for inclusion, as we saw with M-Pesa, but in the West, if we all have bank accounts, then that's the competitor to mobile money. And so making the value proposition clear as to why people should engage with mobile money in a significant way is important to understand. So there are opportunities. There have been a number of trials. They haven't been as successful, but there is, I think, a very fascinating understanding of how mobile money generally and mobile banking clearly must take off into the future in certain sectors, but not in ways which we can do things easily at the moment. So to think about mobile money, if you think about mobile banking in particular, a big push, I think, will be around certain segments of the population initially. So think of the millennials, that is people born since 2000, who basically live on their phones, who can be attracted through value propositions which are much more socially oriented, who have perhaps a desire for alternative ways of doing payments or having banking done, and where they can be attracted with incentives to really, for example, through gaming technology. You have the Atom Bank, which is a fascinating bank which is just launching in the UK, which is marrying gaming technology in its design to attract millennials in providing banking services. So indeed, the value propositions can be very different from a developing country context. And that's the tricky bit, is to really reimagine, as a bank in the developed country context, how they need to think about all the different needs of what particular customer groups and why they will see this of value. And that's emerging. It's not going to be the wildfire success that we see in Kenya because of the great basic need for financial inclusion, but we will see inroads over the next few years. So watch this space.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Thank you, Emily.
And thank you for watching.